How's it going, everyone? I am Walter the Film Hermit, and today I'm going to do a review for Dune, 2021 Dune, directed by Denis Villeneuve. Now, this is a movie that I've been waiting to see for a really, really long time, and I'm going to get this out here right now. The movie's a masterpiece. I'm going to go into more detail here in a second. Also, I just want to say there are going to be some slight spoilers for this movie because in order for me to really talk about its effect on me, I got to talk a little bit about the story points. I'm going to avoid talking about the story points of what's coming in the future, because I know a lot of people out there haven't read the book, but the book's been out since 1965. There's been 2 other iterations of the story before, so it's been out there for many years what this story is about and what's going to happen. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that when I talk about the film, but the main thing I want to talk about just outright, it is a flat-out masterpiece. So this movie was supposed to come out last year, and it got delayed because everything got delayed. And it was one of those movies where I really wanted to see it, but I kept putting it out of my mind. I didn't really want to think about it because there was too much anticipation. And it's different when you watch a film that's a remake of something that you've seen, because I already know what's going to happen, but I want to see it done properly. And if you haven't seen the other iterations of it, this is a movie they've tried to do 3 different times. The first time, there's a really good documentary by about a filmmaker named Jodorowsky, and I'm sorry if I massacred his name. He was going to make it back in the 70s, and he never did. And the documentary goes into more detail about his plans of doing it back then. And then David Lynch did it in 1984, and that production had a lot of issues where it got taken away from David Lynch, and he didn't make the film that he wanted to make. I did a short video on the release of the 1984 version on Arrow 4K Blu-ray. I think about 9 of you watched it. Feel free to take a look at it. It should be in the description. So then they did the Sci-Fi Channel version, which at the time was definitely better than anything they had done before, but it was still a TV production. It had its limitations. And it's weird because you had the 1984 version that had very old special effects, but they were still on a grander scale. And then you had the Sci-Fi version channel that basically had a much better script that stuck closer to the novel, had more newer visual effects, but then everything, the whole production was more on a television television budget, more of a television budget, and it tells, and it doesn't age very well. So now you have this big budget Dune, and the question is, how many movies are they going to make? Are they going to make 1 movie, or are they going to make multiple movies? So I'll go into that more at the end of the video. So I wanted to see what Denis Villeneuve was going to do with the project because I know he's a fantastic filmmaker. I haven't seen a movie of his that I did not like. Other movies of his would be The Arrival, and then also Prisoners with Hugh Jackman, and also he did the sequel, Blade Runner 2049. So movies tend to have really great stories, amazing visuals, and great performances. So I knew going in that I was going to like this film. I was like, there's no way he's going to mess this up. And I didn't know this. He was also been a big fan of Dune since he was 14. So this is a film that he's been wanting to make his whole life and has been visualizing for years. So basically a short story about this week. I knew the movie was coming out. The first showing at Mission Valley Dolby Cinema was going to be at 6 o'clock, and I didn't get off work until about 7. And then some people were asking me, like, you're gonna go tonight? And I'm like, well, I can't go tonight, it's at 6, and I have to see it in Dolby, because a lot of people are gonna watch it on HBO Max because it launched on HBO Max the same exact day. But everyone's been saying this is a film you have to see on the big screen, you have to see it on the big screen. So then the next showing was at 10, and I had to work the next day, and I'm like, well, I don't really want to go at 10 because I know this movie's going to be long and I probably won't get out of there till like 1 o'clock at night. And then of course I got stuck late at work, didn't leave there till like 8 o'clock, and then I'm exhausted, and I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to drive to Mission Valley and watch a movie at 10 o'clock. But I was like, I've been waiting a long time to see this, I really want to see it. Then I was like, well, I got a projector at home, let's just watch it on HBO Max and just turn it up really, really loud. So I watched it on HBO Max, but I did see it again a second time today on the big screen. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences of seeing it on the big screen and seeing it at home. It's a little bit of a cheat for me when I watch it at home because, yes, this is something you need to see on the big screen. I have a projector and I have a big screen in my place. So that was covered. The soundtrack is one of the best soundtracks I've heard on a film in the last 10 years. And this is something that you want to hear in a theater, and it's something that you want to hear at Atmos. I don't have Atmos, but I do not have a sound bar. I have an actual separate speakers, and I have a really nice audio receiver. So I was still able to appreciate, even at home, the soundtrack. One of the big differences with watching it at HBO Max and watching it in the theater, HBO Max, especially depending on the streaming device you're using, even on a big screen projected, the image quality is not as bad as it should be. I didn't run into any buffering, which is a surprise because my internet sometimes buffers a lot. But the little trick to it is if you're starting a 4K movie, don't pause it. Don't pause it. Let it run like you're at the theater. For some reason, it never stops and you're fine. The contrast. There are a lot of dark scenes in this film. And at the theater, I could make things out a little better than I could at home, mainly because the contrast ratio was much better, of course, on an 8K projector at Mission Valley than at my place. But the differences aren't, the gap isn't as large as you would think it is based on my system and my perceptions of it. But I don't recommend watching this on HBO Max on a 50-inch TV, which is the average size most people have in their homes, and watching it on television speakers or soundbar. This soundtrack is absolutely amazing and very important to this film because this soundtrack immerses you into this alien world and basically makes you feel like you're in the world of Dune. And if you're watching on tiny little speakers like it's not gonna really do the same. I was speaking to someone this weekend and I was telling them, oh, the soundtrack is great. Oh, great, I have a sound bar. I'm like, I didn't have the heart to tell them, the sound bars, no, they're garbage. Not gonna do the job. So let's talk a little bit about the movie. This is a science fiction story. It's based on the novel by Frank Herbert, written, hopefully I have the year right. It's 64, I think it's 1965 when it's written. And it's about a young boy named Paul Atreides, who is, you can say kind of like a prince, but his father is a duke in this interstellar family that pretty much controls an entire planet. And they are inheriting a more richer planet called Arrakis, which most people call Dune. That has the most, what should I say? It has the spice, which is something that everyone in the galaxy needs for space travel. I'm not going to go too much into the plot because a lot of you probably already know what this film is about. Like I said, this is the third time that we've seen this on a film production, not counting the David Lynch version and then counting the Sci-Fi Channel version. And let's talk about the performances. All the performances in this movie were really, really good. The editing was amazing, has great cinematography. The scale of this movie was just in awe of like how the designs of the ships, the costumes, and everything was just so beautiful. Just the way they did everything. I loved the lighting, the character design, the costumes, just dead on. One of the best I've seen of this iteration of Dune ever. I'm going to talk a lot about I think this is definitely going to get an Oscar nomination. A lot of science fiction films do not get Oscar nominations, but I'm pretty sure this will get nominated for Best Cinematography. It'll get nominated for Best Sound Design, Best Sound Editing, and it's probably going to definitely be Best Picture, maybe even Best Director as well. So I don't know if it's gonna win. The year's not over yet. The Oscar films aren't out yet, but this movie just completely blew me away. Paul is played by Timothée Chalamet. I've only seen him in a handful of films. I believe he's in Little Women, and I know he's in Lady Bird. So I didn't know that much about him. I just was pretty confident if Denis Villeneuve casted him that he would do a good job, and he looked like the perfect candidate for Paul. A lot of people, one person in particular told me that they wouldn't want to see the movie because they didn't really necessarily see him as a lead and maybe didn't interest them. And they guess they don't know the story to understand. If you understand the story, he's the perfect person to pick for this role. And I thought he did an excellent job. I'm really happy to hopefully see him in future movies, which I'll talk about soon as it's coming up. Rebecca Ferguson plays Lady Jessica, who is his mother. I've been a big fan of Rebecca Ferguson since the Mission Impossible films. She appeared for the first time in the 5th movie, which was my favorite for a long time because the 6th movie came out, and I was happy to hear that she's going to be in the 7th movie as well. and an eighth one whenever they do an eighth one. So I'm really excited about that. But to move back into the story, Oscar Isaac plays the Duke Leto Atreides. He's the father of Paul, and they have to go to Arrakis and basically mine the spice and make sure they present all of the spice to the Emperor, or else there'll be huge consequences. And I thought Oscar Isaac did like a really great job. And as I was saying earlier, when you watch a film that you've seen before because it's a remake or a story that you know, you're not watching it based on like what's going to happen next. You know what's going to happen next. You want to see how it happens differently. So I'm going to go into some spoiler tech on this review right now. So this is a story. This is part one of the novel. It's a very, very long novel, which I have not had a chance to read yet. I should have brought it up to kind of show a visual about how thick it is, but it's about this thick here. And this is just the first part of the story. Denis Villeneuve's plan was to do 3 films, which has never been done before. The first film, David Lynch tried to condense the entire story into one movie, and it doesn't work. So this is just the first part of the story. And when the movie starts, it tells you that it's part 1. So this part of the story, spoiler, Paul loses his dad. And that's something that a lot of people can relate to. I lost my father back in 1999. And when I was watching the film the second time, I noticed there's a lot of sequences that kind of foreshadow this happening. So I don't really feel that's a big spoiler. If you even didn't know the story, you probably know that it's coming. And there's a lot of moments where he's trying to prepare his son for him not being around anymore, and making sure that he can take over for him, and making sure that he's ready, making sure that he knows that he loves him. And there's a really good scene where they're in a graveyard of the former Atreides dukes, and they were talking about like the history of their family. And I thought it was just an amazing scene. It's not a scene that I ever saw in any of the other iterations. I thought it was really good. And the reason I was thinking about it was because I remember something my father told me once. And he told me that a man doesn't really truly become a man until his father dies. And I know for a fact my father never read Dune, or probably even saw the 1984 version. But there's nothing, it was one of the more true things my father ever said to me. And when we lose our parents, it's something that we're always know is going to happen. We know that no one lives forever, but it's something that's really hard when we all go through it. And this is a story of Paul where he loses his dad, and he has to step up, and he has to become the man that he's meant to be. And that just kind of really hit home for me, more so than any of the other versions I ever watched. The first movie is kind of melodramatic when he dies. I don't really remember the Sci-Fi Channel how they handled that moment, but it really had a bigger impact for me in this film. They built the relationship between the two of them very, very well, and I really related to it a lot. Let's talk about Jason Momoa. Jason Momoa is really awesome in this movie. I always liked Jason Momoa. I started liking Jason Momoa when he was on a show called Stargate Atlantis that probably me and 8 other people watched. And I thought that he brought a great energy to that show that was greatly needed. And he's always been a lot of fun. He's really good in this movie as Duncan Idaho. That's a character from the original movie that really never stood that much out to me. Apparently the character is very important in the novel, and I think that Jason Momoa did a great job in bringing that character to life in this film. Let's talk about Thanos himself, Josh Brolin. Josh Brolin plays Gurney Halleck. And Gurney Halleck is actually played by Patrick Stewart in the first film. And Patrick Stewart is awesome. But Josh Brolin was really, really good in this film. He has a lot of really great moments, really great interactions with Paul. This movie does a really great job of setting the stage of all the love and support that this character has. And when he loses a lot of that and faced with this future, what is he going to do to get past the tragedy he's gone through and what he has to do to help save his family. And I can't say enough good things about this movie. It has an amazing soundtrack, it has great cinematography, great performances. Try not to repeat myself, but I just recommend you all just give it a chance and watch it. A little bit of history, what's going on with the film right now is that 2 and 3 have not been approved by Warner Brothers as of yet. So the better that this movie does on HBO Max and the better that it does theatrically, it's going to help improve the odds that we're going to get part 2 and part 3. Now, just to kind of put this out there, the film is doing really well overseas. So I think the chances are really, really good that this is going to be put out. They're going to do 2 and 3. But again, I've been listening to a lot of people on YouTube and online that have decided to watch it on HBO Max. And the thing that I've been hearing a lot of people are doing what I did is like they watch it on HBO Max, they're like, we're going to the theater. We have to see this again. Because they're just blown away and they're like, we have to experience it on the big screen. And I'm thinking people that watch it on the big screen are probably going to want to see it again, and they might watch it the second time at home. So support this film as much as you can. It definitely deserves your support. I think the filmmakers were greatly afraid that the box office was going to be severely hindered by the fact that it's on HBO Max. But it looks like when I went to go get seats for it Thursday night, they were all full. They were full today on Sunday. That was for the Dolby screening. I'm sure it's doing really, really well. So keep supporting it. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. Thank all of you that have been listening to my reviews, watching my videos. I want to say thank you to all of you guys. I'm just a guy in my sister's basement, so thanks for listening to my voice. Actually, I don't have a sister, so I don't know whose basement I'm in. But thank you so much for listening to my voice, and like, comment, and subscribe if you like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great night. Bye.